Hi, I'm doing the shrimp po' boy bowls, which I've been jonesing for, and I've already peeled almost all of the shrimp, washed and peeled them, but I wanted to save the last couple just in case. I'm sure you probably know how to do shrimp, but just in case, I'll show you. I got 2.5 pounds because we are 5 people who really like shrimp. I bought Gulf Coast ones, which were harvested wild in the Keys, and I like those. My preference is North Carolina shrimp, maybe for obvious reasons. It's what I grew up with, but they're pretty good size. I don't know if they're 31 to 40 count or slightly bigger per pound, but they're good size shrimp because you want to have enough to have a good bite. So I left the last 2 to show you. When you're peeling a shrimp, you take the last little section before the tail and you pinch it, and then you sort of pinch and squeeze and it pops that part of the tail out, and then you grab underneath on its belly, and then that will allow you to peel the rest of the peeling off. Usually pretty easily. When I'm in a rhythm and I've done it for a bit, I can pop them out pretty quickly. Now the last thing you need to do is you need to take a pretty sharp paring knife and you need to pierce the back of the shrimp all the way down the back and fish out it's the intestines. Well, that's what I've always been told anyway. It's the intestines. And usually I rinse it to make sure that I've gotten any yucky stuff out. But I'll show you again. You just top it off. That one actually came with a lot of the tail. And then you can grab it underneath and pop the rest of it off. And then I'm going to cut the back of it. Now the recipe that I am sort of using to adapt for my shrimp po' boy bowls is a skinny taste recipe that involves a slimmed down po' boy sandwich. I liked the idea of the slimmed down part because I didn't want to have a completely deep fried shrimp, as glorious as deep fried shrimp are. I wanted something lighter. So her version is that you take spices and garlic and toss the shrimp in the spices and garlic, and that you will do them in the skillet in some olive oil. So win-win, right? Let me show you what else I've been doing. After I peeled all those shrimp and cleaned them, just put them in a bowl, and I'm going to put the seasoning in them and toss them in the seasoning, and then I'm going to hit the pan with some olive oil, a hot pan, and saute them. But also in preparation for the bowls, I have been cutting and chopping. I took bib lettuce, which is a kind of buttery lettuce because I wanted to have something that was a little more nutritional. I honestly don't know the nutritional content of bib lettuce or butter lettuce, but I know it's got to be a little more than iceberg. But a good po' boy sandwich has this great crunchy cold iceberg lettuce on it. So I got a big head of iceberg lettuce and just cut some off. I took the bib lettuce off the middle root, washed it, and then all I did was shred it. So I've got a bowl of shredded lettuce. That's going to be the base of my bowl. Now, in addition to that, the other thing that a good po' boy has are really good sweet summer tomatoes. This is when I wish that I had tomato plants that I've been babysitting. I do not, so I do not have fresh tomatoes. But I did find some good tomatoes on the vine at the grocery store that smell really good, and they have been really good substitutes for that. Anyway, all I'm doing is taking one of these tomatoes, and I am going to slice around the middle part right here. You're fine. And just cut it into wedges like this. This part in the middle is fibrous, and it's got lots of seeds in it. And all I'm going to do is cut off the tender bottom. These tomatoes don't have that sharp thing on the end. And I'm just going to cut it into smaller pieces. I have already cut quite a few tomatoes just in small pieces. And I cut it this way so that it would be easy to de-seed, because I'm going to take the seeds out. And all I'm going to do is just take my finger and push the seeds right on out. And then I'm just going to, with absolutely no precision, I'm just going to chop it up into smaller pieces, cut the tomato after that. Here's the problem. I wanted a shrimp po' boy bowl that was going to be as much like a po' boy as possible. I didn't want it to be a rice bowl or put some other kinds of grains in the bottom of the bowl. I wanted it to be the iceberg lettuce crunch, the sweet summer tomato. I wanted the spicy shrimp, and I wanted the feel in my mouth of that good French bread that you just, it's so good. It's warm out of the oven, and it's just yeasty, chewy, dense goodness. I wanted all of that in a bowl because my waist has not liked quarantine, and I wanted to be happy with what's in my mouth without it hanging out on my waist for the next, till Christmas time. So, my decision in looking through this, and by the way, I Googled it to see if anybody else has done a shrimp po' boy bowl, and they haven't. Well, Google didn't tell me about it anyway. So I guess this is it. I'm the only one. I'm blazing new territory here. Somebody else did one with rice, but we've established I don't want rice in my po' boy bowl. Okay, here's the problem. If you have dry iceberg lettuce, even if you've mixed it with some other lettuce that's a little bit softer and buttery and in theory won't be quite that sort of dry, crunchy feeling if you don't have anything else anchoring it together like the bread, then how do you deal with that? Because I can't just put these tomatoes in this dry lettuce and then it be what I want in my mouth. So, what's the other dish that I love in summer? Bruschetta. Those lovely little toasts of bread with tomatoes, good olive oil, salt and pepper. That's what I'm going to do. All I'm going to do is drizzle just a little bit of this olive oil into my chopped tomatoes that I have de-seeded so they're not so wet. And I'm hoping that I can drizzle it. We've established that my pouring game is super strong, my drizzling game not so much. But all I'm going to do is I drizzled it with just enough olive oil that when I layer this on top of my iceberg lettuce, it's not going to be like some dry piece of tomato that I just sat on top of some dry lettuce. It's going to add to the moisture content. The olive oil is going to add to the flavor. And now I'm going to get some coarse salt and pepper and just sprinkle some coarse salt in it and hit it with some pepper. And then we're going to let this marinate here for a little bit, because anybody who's made bruschetta knows the longer it sits and marinates, the better it gets. So, I am going to hit it with literally just a pinch of salt and about half a teaspoon of pepper, which I'm just quarter to half. I'm just measuring out in the palm of my hand. I'm going to stir it around, and the base of our bowl is done, and I'm going to leave it just hanging out here, being happy, getting all the better for having met the olive oil and the salt and the pepper. Okay, I've mixed up, well, let's start from the beginning. Lettuce, tomato, we know we have to have French bread of some sort in the shrimp po' boy. We know we've got some good shrimp we've peeled, and I've got an amazing rub that's got garlic and cumin and Cajun seasoning and Old Bay in it. So that's all mixed together and it's ready to toss the shrimp in. What I need for the top to bring it all together is some sort of remoulade or aioli. Generally, when you get an authentic po' boy, at least places I've been further south, if you get it dressed, you get it with lettuce, tomato, and mayonnaise. I'm not quite to the point where I'm going to slap a big dollop of mayonnaise on the top of my bowl and call it something healthy for my family. So I decided maybe I'd look at remoulades, but remoulades are traditionally, they have Cornichon pickles in it, or they have capers, that's something really chunky. I didn't want the chunkiness. It had to be something that could sort of function as a dressing for the top of the bowl, but give you a lot of flavor. So then I thought aiolis, which is sort of a garlic mayonnaise, so it's a lot simpler and more pared down. This does not have garlic in it. This is light mayonnaise. It's about, I doubled it because I'm making a pretty big batch. Plus we all like this type of thing. So it's about half a cup of light mayonnaise. It is 2 tablespoons of sriracha. It is 4 teaspoons of freshly squeezed lime juice and about a teaspoonful of Old Bay. That's the flavor that I wanted. The Old Bay is also in the spice rub for the shrimp. I don't know if I mentioned that that was in there, but it is. It's in the spice rub for the shrimp. So the last problem is the bread. How do you get bread if you're not going to have a sandwich, but you still want that good bite of the bread? Okay, what I decided to do, and I think it's going to work, which tickles me, I got some good artisan bread at the grocery store, just farm type bread, just big bread. And I have been melting butter. This is so technical. I melted butter in a pan, and all I did was get the pan hot enough. It's on 6, which is a medium high temperature. And I have got good color on this bread that I put in the melted butter. And I didn't leave it in there for too long. You leave it in for too long and then it gets hard. I want them to be a little bit crunchy, a little bit chewy. So, show you how I did it. All I did was take about 2 to 2.5 tablespoons of butter. And yes, it's a lot of butter, but you've got some really big chunks of bread that I cut off of that artisan bread that I got from the grocery store. So this is what I'm thinking. I've got the base of the good lettuce that's going to give me crunch, but I've added the different butter lettuce to give me a little sweeter flavor. I've got the chopped, seeded good tomatoes that I just dressed in a little bit of olive oil and salt and pepper that I'm going to put on top of that. But in between those two things, I'm going to put these croutons, these dense, chewy croutons. It's not going to take many per bowl, so it's not going to be the same as getting an entire French loaf with a lot of shrimp and mayonnaise and what have you on there that's going not to be as healthy for your waistline or as happy for your waistline. And all I'm going to do is turn these over with my tongs until the flat part is sitting on the pan so that it can get the color that I want. And then I'm going to let it hang out until it finishes coloring up. And you'll notice I did these in batches because if you crowd the pan, then you won't get the same color and you won't get the same crunch on the sides as if you let it have enough room. All right, I'm gonna leave it there for a second and then I'm gonna flip it over and do the other side of it. The very, very top was the part that was confounding me because if I've got the lettuce, these good buttery kind of chewy croutons, I've got the tomatoes that are kind of bruschetta-y, but some good flavor with the fresh tomatoes. Then I'm gonna have my sauteed shrimp with all of that good Cajun seasoning and Old Bay on it. But that was still missing a little something, even with the aioli on top. So the last thing that I'm gonna do is take just a little bit of butter, not nearly as much as this, and put it back in the pan that I finished cooking the shrimp in. I'm gonna just quickly wipe it out. And I'm going to melt a little bit of butter, and then I'm going to take some panko breadcrumbs, and really whatever breadcrumbs you got will work. I'm going to use panko because they get a little crisper. And all I'm going to do is quickly toast the panko breadcrumbs in just a little bit of butter, and then I'm going to sprinkle that on top of the bowls at the end because I'm not deep frying my shrimp, which means that it's not got the same kind of crunch on the shrimp, as good as the shrimp are going to be, and I want that mouth crunch. So that's the plan for the very top. It's probably unhealthy how much I've thought about this, but I wanted a shrimp po' boy so bad. So that's what I'm going to do. And some of these are already getting ready. And this probably, the next time that I do it, will not take as long to do. Now, if I'd been in a rush, Or if I'd gone to the grocery store and I couldn't find the shrimp that I wanted, I would have gone to the freezer section and I would have gotten a bag of easy peel, deveined shrimp. And those suckers have just been split down the back. They've had the goopy stuff taken out of the insides, and their tails are still on. You can also get them without the tails. But all you have to do is let them sort of defrost in the refrigerator and in a colander with some running water over it in the sink, and pop them into your dish, into the skillet to cook, and then into your dish. Actually, if I'd gotten a super big rush, I probably would have just bought the C-Pack or the Gorton's breaded fried shrimp and baked them in the oven, but I can't imagine that's going to be as good as any of the other options. All right, so the bread now has some good color on it. You see that? Has some good color on it. My burner is hot, which I like, and I don't have to wait for it to heat up again. So what I'm gonna do now is toss the shrimp in this wonderful, wonderful smelly seasoning with all the garlic and Old Bay and cumin. And I have to admit, I put in some Cajun seasoning in addition to the cumin because I wanted to. It smelled good to me. I go by smells a lot. If you're ever looking for a way to determine how you would like to season something, smell it while you're eating whatever it is that a little bit of whatever it is that you're cooking, if you can eat it raw, and see how the tastes go together. All I did was mix up these spices with the garlic and the wet garlic, and it's going to be wonderful, but right now it's pretty goopy. So what I'm gonna do is just use these same little tongs, clean off my spoon here, make sure I get as much of this stuff on the shrimp as possible. And now I'm just gonna mix this stuff around. I'm going to saute them in a little bit of olive oil. Not much, it's not gonna take much, it's not gonna take very long. In my head, I envisioned this dish at sort of room temperature because I didn't really want the shrimp to be so hot that they would be wilting every single thing under it, but I don't want them to be cold either. So the compromise was doing them next to last. As you know, when you're cooking, the thing that's the hardest is getting everything ready at the same time. So chopping the lettuce ahead of time, chopping the tomatoes ahead of time, peeling the shrimp ahead of time, chopping the bread ahead of time, all of those things are gonna make it so that you can do it in an assembly line fashion pretty quickly once you get started. Okay, now this is all mixed around, and I am going to reach for my olive oil, and there's some bread bits left in the pan. It's not gonna hurt the shrimp at all. And all I'm gonna do is do about a tablespoon of oil on the bottom of the pan, put it back on the hot burner, and it's not really gonna matter about crowding the pan. If we were truly frying these shrimp and wanting some color on them, then I would be doing this in batches, but that's not necessary. So, all I'm gonna do is let them hang out. They're not gonna take but a few minutes per side. And while I am waiting on that, I'm gonna get out the panko breadcrumbs, which I forgot to get out because I got excited with all the other stuff. So I just got whatever they had in the grocery store, which lately you catch as catch can. So I'm just gonna let those hang out there. I'm gonna get out my little frying pan, and I'm going to put probably a little bit less than a tablespoon of butter in this pan, just because I know I'm making this for 5 people. And I'm going to get my burner just going on low, so it will start to get this a little melty. I always feel like I'm not on top of my burner. I move my pan while I'm stirring things around, and I'm not on top of the burner. So, oh man, this smells good. The shrimp is got that good garlicky Cajun, Old Bay, all of it going on. And I can't wait to hit it with that sriracha aioli, which I know. The Cajuns didn't consider the sriracha authentic, I'm pretty sure. But I have a Cajun uncle. I think he might forgive me if it added some heat that was also pretty tasty. They're pretty good people for really liking their tasty, flavorful food. So, this is looking so good.
Quit telling everybody else how to cook it. Let's eat it.
And Daniel would like for it to be done right now.
Yes, we're hungry.
Well, you'll be happy to know I left the stuff out for the aioli so I can make more aioli if we get done with that too fast. That tends to be the problem. We end up eating ourselves out of the dressing or whatever it is, or leftovers. I planned for something to feed us a couple of nights, and lo and behold, it does not. Now, where you split these to clean out the top of it, obviously we'll start peeling back a little bit as they start cooking. Everything is getting warm and firm, and it is just wonderful. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to give up eating shrimp po' boys forever. I clearly think that that's going to be on my table in heaven because I love them. But for now, in a pinch, when I need some good po' boy flavor without all the bread, I'm going to be happy to do something like this. Now, I'm going to try to cobble this recipe together. As usual, I will take a picture of how I plate it at the end, and then I will post the recipe underneath it as well as any notes if I've changed portions of the recipe so that you can recreate it. And you clearly can ask any questions that you have if you have questions about it. But I'll probably end up writing this one up for myself because I have had to cobble it together from so many different places. My sweet friend sent me a link to a Google Drive where she'd recreated, dropped and copied and pasted some recipes that I didn't even write down. And she sent them to me so that it would help me as I'm cooking these things again. So, and this is really kind of it. As I wait for these to finish, good grief, I splattered that up there. They must be good. They're cooking all over the place. All right. I'll show you how I do the panko, and then I guess that'll be it. Okay, I have this butter melted in this pan, just on low over there, and I'm going to need to grab my other spatula. If you ever see any of these little spatulas, they're incredibly helpful for this. Things like this. Okay, got my panko, got my butter, and I'm going to eyeball it. And I'm just going to cover the bottom of this pan with the panko, and then I'm going to put it on a medium-low heat so that I can get it crunched up quickly. And if I have miscalculated and needed some more butter, I will add a little tiny bit of more butter. But all I'm going to do is wait for one side of it to crunch. Don't know if you can see it. Wait for one side of those to crunch, and they're pretty white right now. And after I flip them over and stir them around, they should be pretty brown and buttery looking. So that's the theory. It's what has been happened before. I'm just going to let it hang out there for a minute. And these are going to be good in just another minute. have to be honest, when it comes to meat, any kind of meat, I probably mostly err on the side of cooking it a little too much rather than not enough. I have yet to cook a piece of shrimp that makes it inedible. So my family doesn't care if I like it a little more done, especially the stuff that maybe it might not be super easy to see what it's doing on the inside. But okay, I'm starting to get a little bit of color on the top, which lets me know it's getting hot all the way up through. So all I'm going to do is just move it around with my spatula. And I'm not going to put anything else in here. It's just going to be a little bit of butter and these breadcrumbs. And there's something wonderful that happens with any type of bread and butter and heat. I guess that's how toast came to be a thing. Yeah, toast. Because this stuff is super yummy. And I actually might add a teeny little bit more butter because I added more breadcrumbs than I was thinking I was going to add at the very beginning. Okay, so I'm just adding another tiny little bit there. See, none of this is fatal if you don't get enough in the beginning. Just add more. It's no big deal. Okay, that's it. The shrimp are almost done. The breadcrumbs are getting better here. Sorry, camera work is still hard. Maybe you can see that though. As a matter of fact, now that I know I've got enough butter in there, I'm going to heat it up just a little bit more. Put it on going towards a high temperature so that I can get them toasted pretty quickly, because this shrimp is about ready to roll. I can smell it. All right. Guess that's it. Now, as far as leftovers for this kind of thing goes, you better eat it all that you want to eat it the night that you do it, if you like the croutons crunchy and chewy. Because the longer they sit, even if you put them in something that is airtight, the longer they're going, the harder they're going to be when you try to eat them the next day. So if you think that's awesome, I'll just add more dressing, no big deal, rock that out. If it matters to you and you don't want to have to make more the next day, then eat it all up that first night. That's it. I will let you know how everything turns out all together and post the recipes. Thanks for watching.